Spoštovani gosti, spoštovani mednarodni gosti, spoštovani študenti, rada bi vas pozdravila na našem World Habitat Day. Welcome, dear guests. I would like to welcome you on World Habitat Day. Danes imam čast, da začnem in otvorim ta dogodek s podpisom naše ekolistine, ki smo jo pripravili v sodelovanju s študenti, v sodelovanju s programom Ekošola. In začela bom pravzaprav tako, da bom prebrala naše zaveze, potem pa bom predala besedo tudi našim gostom. I am honored to start the event today with the signature of our Eco Charter. So I will read our commitments of Eco Charter aloud, if you allow me, please. It would be in Slovene, if you don't mind. So let's start with the first commitment. S podpisom ekolistine se študenti, profesori in zaposleni Fakultete za dizajn zavezujemo, da bomo s svojim poučevanjem, raziskovanjem, umetniškim ustvarjanjem ter tudi z načinom študija in dela soglasno uresničevali cilje trajnostnega razvoja in naslednja načela. Podpirali bomo zeleno pisarniško poslovanje, prizadevali si bomo za ohranjanje naravnih virov, preprečevanje nastajanja odpadkov, trajnostno rabo virov in materialov ter zmanjšanje ogljičnega odtisa fakultete. Študenti in zaposleni bomo delovali družbeno odgovorno, kulturno raznolikem in vključujočem akademskem okolju, ki upošteva načelo medsebojnega spoštovanja. Vselej bomo zasledovali principe družbeno odgovornega in trajnostnega oblikovanja, ki upošteva blaženje podnebnih sprememb, ohranjanje biotske raznovrstnosti, trajnostno rabo naravnih virov, varovanje zdravja in dobrega počutja. Spodbujali bomo inovacije in kreativnost na pedagoškem, znanstveno-raziskovalnem in umetniškem področju z namenom doseganja trajnostne vrednosti. Prizadevali si bomo za oblikovanje učinkovitih trajnostnih politik kreativnega sektorja. Sedaj bomo predali besedo tudi koordinatorici našega, torej programa Ekošola, gospa Luciji Marov, ki jo tudi prosim za nekaj besed. I would like to introduce you to Lucija Marov, the Ekošola program. Please, Lucija.
Lep pozdrav vsem. Hello and welcome in the name of program EcoSchools. Mogoče nam bo še tako angleščini, da bodo tudi gosti razumeli, če se strinjate. We are pleased and happy and honored that the Faculty for Design decided to start collaboration and to enter the program EcoSchools in Slovenia. It is the largest network of youth mentor students globally and in Slovenia, and institutions from kindergartens to faculties. So it covers the all institutions. You can be very proud because you have succeeded to achieve the first 7 steps of the methodology, which enables you to get the award. This is the green flag. This is the umbrella of all institutions within the program EcoSchools. And I can also say that within this previous year that we have been collaborating with colleagues, with students, I can say that you're very dedicated, very active, proactive, and we are happy that you became a member of our big global family, and we are looking forward to further collaboration. So congratulations once again, welcome to the family, and I like to say being in the program EcoSchools, in being sustainable, it's not something that we just know and do. It is a journey, it is exploration, and it is also challenging ourselves and the society. And let's be all part of it, and let's all contribute to this. So thank you so much, and congratulations once again.
And I would also like to present the student, Juriš Teblaj, the Eco Council. So please, Juri, go ahead.
Ja, lep pozdrav še iz moje strani. Ker se vsi zavedamo, v kakšnih časih živimo, je izjemno pomembno, da smo fakulteta kot skupnost se odločili za ta korak in bomo podpisali ekolistino. V imenu vseh študentov in študentskega sveta bi se rad zahvalil vodstvu, profesorjem in ostalim, ki so pripomogli k temu, da nam študentom dajo možnost razmišljanja, ustvarjanja in ustvarjanja na področju ekologije, trajnosti in seveda medsebojnih odnosov. Veseli smo, da se naš učni program razvija v takšno smer, da bomo v prihodnosti z našimi kreativnimi idejami znali pripomoči k reševanju različnih, tudi ekoloških težav, ki se tiče vseh nas. Hvala.
And finally, we want to speak the coordinator of the program EcoShola.
Okay. Ja. Morda samo, da pozdravim še v imenu programa EcoShola. Jaz sem nacionalni koordinator, Prof. Zdaj že več kot 10 let in še posebno čast in veselje mi je priti na ekofakulteto. Glede na to, da se je program začel z vrtci oziroma osnovnimi šolami, potem preraščal tudi na srednje šole, smo bili tudi v svetovnem merilu med prvimi državami, mislim, da 5. država na svetu, ki je uspela program EcoShola vpeljati tudi na ekofakulteto. Torej, vaša soseda tukaj, Pedagoška fakulteta v Ljubljani, je bila prva ekofakulteta v Sloveniji in tudi med prvimi na svetu. Tako da sledite, mislim, da ste zdaj že 7. ali 8. lekcija, točno ekofakulteta v Sloveniji. Mi s ponosom in z veseljem vsakič povemo, da je Slovenija tudi v družini ekofakultet na globalnem nivoju. Glede na to, da je program EcoShola na vseh celinah, v več kot 70 državah, mislim pa, da je samo nekih 15 držav, kjer imajo tudi ekofakultete. Tudi iz tega vidika, Lucija je prej že, morda z druge strani so tudi resli, pa še ta mednarodni kontekst nekoliko postavil vašo fakulteto. Iskrene čestitke, priznanje, tudi fakulteta v tej smeri, mislim, da ste ena redkih, torej fakulteta za dizajn, mislim, da takšnih primerov ni prav veliko, tako da se z veseljem in ponosom lahko tudi vi kot kolektiv pohvalite na svetovnih evropskih srečanjih, da ste ekofakulteta, da ste del te mednarodne družine, mi smo pa seveda tudi zelo veseli. Tako da, kot rečeno, iskrene čestitke, celoten kolektiv, tukaj je ekipno delo, tukaj ni delo posameznika, od profesorjev do študentov. Jaz mislim, da kot je Lucija tudi že omenila, kot celota moramo delovati, saj le kot skupnost lahko uspemo na trajnostih aktivnostih in vsebinah, ki pa jih moramo, to ni več zdaj, ali bomo ali ne bomo, to preprosto moramo. Vemo, kaj si lahko povedal, v kakšnem svetu živimo. Torej, trajnostne aktivnosti so nujnost in vi, študenti, ste tisti, ki boste nosilci sprememb v prihodnje. Tako da apeliram, ni to zdaj ali da ali ne, da, brezkompromisno. Hvala lepa.
Jaz bi se še enkrat rada zahvala vsem, ki ste sodelovali v tem programu in boste v njem sodelovali tudi v prihodnje. Počakali bomo, da še gospod podpiše. Okay, so I think that we're done.
Ja. Jaz bi iskreno čestitala, res še enkrat hvala za povabilo. Hvala vsem študentkam in študentom, hvala vsem profesorjem za to, ker dejansko zavestno upeljujemo v vse naše pedagoške, znanstveno-raziskovalne in umetniške projekte vse cilje agende 2030. So, thank you very much to all. Tako je.
Tako, zdaj pa bi vam rada predstavila našo dekanjo, Matičič, ki bo s svojim govorom otvorila današnji World Habitat Day. So I would like to introduce Professor Matičič, the Dean of Faculty of Design, with her open speech of the World Habitat Day. So please, Nada.
Dobro jutro, pozdravljeni, spoštovane študentke, najdražji študenti. Good morning, all our distinguished guests from Scotland, Belgium, Great Britain, Slovenia, from Serbia, and from Denmark. Tomorrow we'll close also representatives from Finland and representatives from Italy. Warm welcome on Faculty of Design on a very important day. This is World Habitat Day, and I would like to say that, of course, United Nations established this very important day, which should be on the first Monday of every October. But I have to say our Faculty of Design is celebrating World Habitat Day the whole month because it is our traditional urban design, urban October, and especially during this week when we host our distinguished guests. For this, every year is a new theme. But for this year's World Habitat Day is accelerating urban action for a carbon-free world. The theme recognizes that cities are responsible for 70% of global carbon dioxide emissions, with transport, buildings, energy, and waste management accounting for the bulk of urban greenhouse gas emissions. Events and activities during World Habitat Day will explore how national, regional, local governments and organizations, communities, academic institutions, the private sector, and all relevant stakeholders can work together to create sustainable, carbon-neutral, inclusive cities and towns. And of course, our daily environment. It is so important, and Faculty of Design produce many of that projects in the field of housing, in the field of business projects, and of course in last years also in the field of urban design and space design on the first and second degree. So, dear students, it is a great opportunity to do something. Every stone and every our thing and project and our dots and lines are very important for you and for your future. I'm very grateful to all my colleagues from these countries to come to Ljubljana for celebrating our urban October. They are coming almost every year, and they are willing to share their great knowledge, and they're willing to add, how should I say, great quality to our pedagogical, scientific, and artistic projects on Faculty of Design. These workshops are for all our students in the field of interior design, architectural space, textile and fashion, in the field of visual communication, as well as design management. Tomorrow will be also for us a very great day, because 2 years ago, we became a very important partner of New European Bauhaus platform with the main seat in Brussels, in Belgium. And we are really very proud of that, because together with our European Association, BEDA, and World Organization of Designers, we all want to contribute to all the goals of Agenda 2030. Tomorrow we meet us on the Castle of Ljubljana. Warm welcome all students, all professors, and of course all my dearest colleagues. This Going Green Global Design Week is very important for us because during the year we are working with many institutions, national and international. We are working with many research institutions, and we are working, of course, with all our colleagues. And in this context of rethinking the future, we are speaking all the time about new life, new design, new opportunities, new architecture, even new planet, or if you want, or our new future. Of course, we can't live for tomorrow. We are here now. We have to act, and we have to do everything that this design thinking and all our efforts going in action. I always think we are speaking on the conference, on round tables, in front of our students. We have brainstorming stories, design talks, and so on. But it is really very important that we are thinking about all transformations which are waiting for us, and we have to find the solutions. Speaking is not good enough. Making project is not good enough, but it is really very important that we bring this project to the realization. Today we have two representatives from very important product design companies, from Adria and Magnet Design, and I'm looking forward very much what do they have to tell to you young talents, how important is that a new fresh air is coming in all the projects. So solutions have to be, not only on the paper. Work from home and social distances because of all this COVID, of course, are the causes to give also to us, because we are making projects, some new solutions. But I think, my personal opinion, it is perfect to sit here to speak with you, looking you in your eyes, so we know that you are sad or happy, or we know you are willing to listen to the people who have many experiences and of course knowledge too. Yeah, now we come together, of course, to find these answers to these many important questions. We can co-create new images, we can co-create new future, and we can co-create our future for young people, for talents, for our trees, for our animals, for all people. Design for all is the only strategy. I can confirm that from my 50 years of making projects for the people, and it is very important what do they say and what do they think about us who are willing to make projects. So I would like to thank you very much. Now I choose one video from my Facebook friend, but it is so touching I want to deliver you and enjoy a little bit. Thank you. Don't cry. But it is really the greatest problem to have water. The strategy said there will be no water until 2050, but it is not true. This year, 2022, was really very horrible for many, many countries, including Slovenia. So, thank you very much. Now I would like to invite to opening speech to expert contributions, Professor Dr. Dragan Čalović, PhD, he's a doctor, professor, and last 3 weeks he became a dean of Faculty of Contemporary Arts in Belgrade, Serbia. Warm welcome, Professor. Warm welcome.
Thank you, Professor Nana. Thank you to everyone. It's always a great pleasure to see you all here in Ljubljana and to be in Ljubljana with you. So, experience design has a long history. Ritual ceremonies, drama, even architecture are designed to provide a certain kind of experience. But design for experience has become much more present during the 20th century, and the media has played a central role with the emergence of radio, film, television, and more recently digital media such as internet and virtual reality. And different media showcase different types of experiences, but all share the same center importance of the experience they evoke. And one important theory underpinning experience design comes from economics. Pine and Gilmore theorize that we have moved from a service economy to an experience economy. And according to them, the experience component of the economy is growing rapidly, outstanding the service sector, just as the service economy outgrew the industrial economy previously. And the pioneer in this transition to an experience economy is Walt Disney. Disneyland and Disney World as well all Disney movies, embodied this actually model of experience whose economic value is based upon enjoyment and memorability rather than our traditional concept of service. Also Las Vegas is another example of such turn to a new kind of economy. So it is important to note that Pine and Gilmore's model of experience encompasses multiple realms or types or experiences that can be engaged, including entertainment, educational, ethic, and escapist. So, significantly, Pine and Gilmore emphasize that in setting out to design a rich, compelling, and engaging experience, it is not actually necessary to stay in just one of these realms. While many experiences engage primarily to one of these four realms or types, the most of them actually cross boundaries and combining elements from all four realms. So the key is to find the right balance for each type of experience. And Rolf Jansen, a Danish futurist, has articulated a model similar to the experience economy that he refers to as the dream society. And in the emerging dream society, the quality of the experience, including the story of theme that underlies it and provides a memorable dimension, is becoming increasingly important in all sectors of our lives. According to Jansen, the dream society will center around 6 major markets that target human needs for adventure, togetherness, to care and be cared for, to define ourselves, to feel safe and secure, and to demonstrate our convictions. As an example of designing for a dream society, I will mention Dana Edgley, a storyteller, a former writer who support different companies such as Coca-Cola to provide stories that they can connect to their companies, to build different communities inside the company, and to connect themselves to external public. But on the other hand, we can ask ourselves whether we should design for a dream society, which is some kind of simulacra, or more critically, to design for a new, better, and reimagined society. So that's actually the question. And if we choose another option, then for that we will need a critical design for experience. To understand critical design for experience, we should understand empathic design. And empathic design is a design research approach that is directed towards building creative understanding users and their everyday lives for new product development. So, when we say creative understanding, it means that it is actually the combination of a rich cognitive and effective understanding and the ability to translate this understanding into user-centered products and services. and it draws actually on information about the users and their everyday life. And it includes inspiration for design and empathy, or a feel for the user. The empathic design approach is considered actually the most valuable in the early stages of new design development, while product still has different opportunities to be developed in different ways and to be considered in different situations. And over the past years, empathic design involved in response to the popular notion of design for user experience. And design for experience actually means design guided by and to understanding of users and their experiences. And it is actually a design attitude that emerges in the 1990s when the design community was increasingly faced with the design of complex integrated systems that affects users' behaviors and experiences beyond individual product or service, and started to realize that broader approach to user-centered design would be necessary to develop products that are pleasurable and easy to use, which is actually something we face every day, because we usually don't like to use some complex softwares to do some easy things, or to I don't know, use them as simply tools. We usually like some simplified software. So it was actually a first step in considering experience of users. And over the past years, empathic design rapidly evolved in response to the popular notion of design for user experience. And respecting users. So respecting users and being committed to understanding users' needs and desires, building holistic understanding of users' activities, and relying on personal insight and creativity. And that was something very important also for business community and for developing markets and so on, etc. But instead to stay economic-centered, we should move to actually human-centered approach. And that's why I developed such idea, which is idea in progress, and I would like to present you a few attitudes connected to that idea, and some categories which are important to critically design for user experience. So empathy, that is the first principle. Empathy can be described as the ability to understand what it feels like to being another person, because if we design to other persons, we have to understand how they feel about and what is actually their situation, and what that person's situation is like from her on his own perspective. So empathic design calls upon designers and researchers empathic abilities in making interpretation of what people think, what they feel and dream, and in envisioning possible future situation of product use. So we have to connect ourselves to other people and to try to see this world through their eyes. And second principle is the need to critically and responsibly understand the relation between design and society and its possible futures. Because when we design, we actually change the world, we change patterns of life. And being designer is a very responsible profession. It's not just producing some nice objects or making this world more beautiful. It's not just that level of a profession. It's actually it's actually a profession that is involved in everyday life and which change this life. So we always have to ask ourselves how some new products, how some new design change this world, because we can change this world to be a better world, or we can change it to be a worse than it is right now, and we are responsible. So it actually means to develop socially and environmentally responsible design, which is connected to desirable future, not just any future, because of course we will all have some future, but we should have desirable future. And third principle is education, because designers and researchers continually develop and check their creative understanding of users' experience in dialogue with users over time. And users are seen as the experts of their experiences and crucial partners in building creative understanding of these experiences, which is, of course, a right thing, because it's always very important to listen users and to listen people to whom we are designing. But designers also should educate users how to act more responsible and how to understand a wider context of their action. Because we, in this world, we all have to be educators. We all have to find some mission to improve this world and to change patterns of life and to change people's behaviors. So if you have any opportunity, you are obliged to act. So if you are designers, you are obliged to act to your design, to educate people. I'm a teacher, so I'm obliged to act to my teaching. And every one of us are obliged to act to make this world a better place, or to protect this world, because if we do not act, maybe we will not have this world in another 100 years. So we have to change our behavior. And engaged stories also. The fourth and last principle that I identified is engaged stories, because many analysts see the importance of stories as a central element in designing for experience, because designing is also making a story or telling some new story, but and each design triggers some meaning and stories, and these meanings and stories can be used for economic benefits, for example, to manipulate to people, to put them on some wrong path, or to teach us how to spend our money. But more responsibly, they can be critically used for all humans' benefits. So we can imagine different stories. We can imagine stories to gain more profit, or we can engage stories to protect our planet, to protect our way of life, to protect our communities, and to protect our planet and our society. Which is more important? I think it is much more important to protect society than just to protect the business, because we will always have some business. And in other words, design should not be just a tool for economic development, even though economic development is very important, but design should not be just a tool for economic development, or maybe political repression, or some spread of ideology, etc., but an instrument that enters us in a new, more desirable world. So let's think how to change our approach to design as actually a part of our intentions to build a new and better world and a new and better society. If we want better society, if we want better world, we have to start from a new culture, because if we don't change our culture, we will never be able to change our world. So that was for today. For me, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor. It is so urgent to know how to begin in ourselves. Very important. Now I would like on the stage to invite Miss Rosina Spinoi. No, the first, okay. Professor Dr. Hussam Al-Baer from Dundee University, warm welcome, from Faculty of Art and Design. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks very much for the invite. I had a lovely time. This is my second visit to the lovely Ljubljana over the last 4 or 5 years. So I will do with Rosina double act. So I will show some of the foundation and principles for a very timely subject, the 20 minutes neighborhood and the 15-minute city in Europe and in the UK at the moment. I will explain some of the principles, and Rosina will show as well some examples from practice, especially focusing on the bottom-up approach as well. So the talk I am going to refer to, it is very visual. It's not going to be fully academic, because I work with some key agencies, governments as well, and organizations in the UK and in Europe. So it will be a combination between practice, theory, but also reflections. And it is based as well on my civic urban design laboratory in Scotland, the one I established with various cities, but also some of the outcomes of my recent work from Damascus University. So let me start with this one. Change is the only constant in our life. And if you look at the Agenda 2030, where this agenda stands when it's come to issue of everything is on move at the moment, legislations, personnel, lifestyle, energy crisis, the war with Ukraine, climate repairs, people now talking about climate repairs, no longer climate emergency, health inequality, the injustice system we have in Europe and in the UK. So if you think about it, people no longer talk about cities and places because they are not priorities at the moment. Priority is how to get the economy better, how to get our energy supplied safe. So medium and long term is important, and United Nations said it is important, but who cares and who is responsible? So yes, our cities represent only 3% of the Earth's surface, but it does produce now more than 75% of carbon dioxide. We do need sustainable development goals. And yes, this photo looks so sexy and very colorful, but what does that mean to the locality of our places? What does that mean? Yes, they look wonderful, but how do we localize those 17 criteria? It's not enough only to focus on number 11 now. You cannot achieve sustainable cities and communities without making correlation with how do we reduce inequality, how do we make responsible consumptions, or how do we take climate action seriously, or how do we achieve better health and well-being. So we need to bust the silos, and we need to have synergy between all of those. This is why number 17 is really very key. And this is why I am so delighted with this event, because we do need interdisciplinary approach, but also we need to bring and link the dots together, because this will require diverse teams to see the blind spots because we all see the built environment from different perspectives. And this is, to me, we need to start getting the fundamental rights, especially how do we control and manage the inputs coming to our cities in terms of products, people, transportations, and how do we control the outputs. But more importantly, we need to start having a defined relationship with the biodiversity and nature, especially the next risk for me, not also energy supply, but food supply as well. So this requires to me a defined relationship. No wonder why we need to have circular economy, and this circular economy not also at city level. If you look at the European Constitution, UK, we talk about a lot about cities, but we don't talk a lot about neighborhood level. And cities, to me, should be cities of connected, vibrant neighborhoods. And I will say a little bit about this later on. We need to start really taking localism seriously and local neighborhood and the power of localism. But this will require appreciating the hierarchy of local, neighborhood, city, and regional level, because there will be no one-size-fits approach to all. And in Europe and in the UK at the moment, the way we build cities and manage cities, there are two approaches. This one said, focus our resources and money and investment in the center of the city center. And if the center flourish, everywhere else will flourish. To a large extent, that's true. But the danger with that, you make that the center so attractive, everyone will aspire to. But you don't make balanced investment between the city and neighborhoods. And that promotes sprawl. That promotes sprawl. And the problem with sprawl, it does promote distance. And distance demands transport, more land take, and more pollution in the atmosphere. There is another, and this is, by the way, in a way or another, the UK and some European cities. In some German cities, like Freiburg, like Leipzig, they have a different mentality. No, they said, city must be a city of connected, vibrant, sustainable neighborhoods. Yes, we need to have a distinct neighborhood and a distinct city center, but also we need to give power to the engine of local neighborhoods. And it should be connected. By doing so, you balance the investment between the city and neighborhoods, and you make the distance shorter. City should be city of shorter distance and should be city of neighborhoods, especially now, post-pandemic in Europe and in the UK, a lot of people now working from home. So we need to make this idea of how we overlap and how do we correlate living with working with enjoyment by shortening the distance. We're not against the car, but we need to reduce as much as we can our aggregate carbon dioxide by investing in more active travels. 20 minutes neighborhood. This is becoming legislation, by the way, in Scotland, in Melbourne, in Australia, and now 15-minute city in Paris. Scottish government defined it by, it is a method of achieving connected and often compact neighborhoods designed in a such way that people can meet the majority of their daily needs with a reasonable walk, wheel, or cycle within 800 meters. The first 800 meters, which is the 10 minutes there and 10 minutes back, within the first 800 meters, rather than relying on the car all the time. So this is becoming legislations now in Scotland, and all local authorities now must study this and must implement it. And this is exactly what the 20 minutes neighborhood, it's not only about transportation, but it's also about livability, the access to the service, health, care, schools, more local choices, like the way we've seen in the city center of Ljubljana. The choices and the diversity of choices, what make the place nice, walkable, but also thinking about the density and mixing density of houses, less land takes, and fewer car trips. But also, this is not about creating places similar to each other. This is about as well identity and making sure every place has its own identity. And this is not new, my colleagues. I would strongly encourage you to visit city of Freiburg in Germany. They applied this. This is their early sketch in nearly 2000. So this is the city center, they make it distinct, and this is the neighborhood, and they make it a city of connected, a network of short distance and connected neighborhood. So the questions for us then, how do we provide sustainable connections, physical or services, to join up neighborhood, to the towns, and even to the wider connections? This is as well the mayor of Paris. During the pandemic, the first months of the pandemic, she promised to make, because the Paris city is really very traffic oriented and the congestion level is rather high with the CO2, she promised to have a Paris, a 15-minute city, tackling the issue of crowdness and making it more free car and pedestrian friendly and bringing more green into the heart of Paris city. Recently, Utrecht in Netherlands, strongly recommend you visiting it. The mayor as well promised to make Utrecht an inclusive, compact city by 2040 by concentrating their investment and growth alongside the transit system and densifying their core neighborhood and centers by having more houses, more as well retail and offices. Now, this is unfortunately not the case in suburban area. If you look at these pictures, especially at suburban area in the UK, in Europe, you see this unfortunately just business as usual houses, where it is really driven by the how do you want to say, the market system. And what a shame it doesn't follow any a hierarchy structure for the urban morphologies, because it is purely car-oriented. The challenge with this kind of system, we lost the meaning of neighborliness. How do you define neighborliness in your language? Neighborliness? Here we go. We really lost that meaning. We lost that meaning. Why? Everything's about car-oriented. And a lot of research show that this kind of system has poor accessibility, decline in health, low density, and when you have low density, you cannot justify investing in that area, neither in bus stop or services or facilities or in school. Low density will be not attractive for investment, and local authorities will not invest in this area if there is very low critical mass of people. So the problem with that, the system isn't broken. Some people say it was built this way, and they feel there's nothing wrong with that. And this is what we end up. Some questions I am going to raise with you. How do accessibility patterns affect the delivery of the 20 minutes neighborhood? If you look at the zoning system we created, that's make the 20 minutes rather difficult. Why? Because it's all about car-oriented. It's all about having their own car and their own car system. So doing any interventions in here sometimes rather impossible or costly, or sometimes need interventions beyond architecture, urban design, or urban planning. And the same with the concept of a cul-de-sacs. Just it is not bearable. Connecting neighborhood and each other will be really rather impossible with that cul-de-sacs we created all over the last 50 years. This is why we really need to start rethinking about how do we create sustainable community? How do we create interactive communities? By starting diversifying our systems, by having densifying our system alongside the main route and the main transportations, main tram system. But this is not about giving the system, how do you want to say, one-size-fits approach. This is about how do we have gradual densities, focusing the density around main hubs of transportation and then having a gradual reduction in density. So you diversify the offers and what you offer to the community. I would strongly recommend you read this book by the Sir Richard Rogers. That's in 1999, imagine. 1999. And what he said, it's very important you link intensity of uses with the diversity and proximity. So you need to have a correlation between proximity to services, how dense, and who lives there. That's quite crucial. Density in Europe in general, especially with suburban houses, is between 15 to 25. That's especially in typical suburban houses. And that to me is very low. That to me is very low. We need to start thinking more about mid density, something around 30 to 60 to 45. A lot of research show that, yes, density, higher density doesn't mean living indoors. I've got to be very careful what I say. When I say gentle density or a bit higher density, doesn't mean living in a flat. No at all. No at all. Doesn't mean living in a tower. And we need to start diversifying what we offer in line with the change we have at the moment, post-pandemic and the current economic recession, and the way people now working really from home. So we need to diversify what we have. Recently, this is an interesting study as well by one of the really famous architecture office in Denmark, where my colleagues come from. How do we move from these separated private homes for families? This is what typically they deliver even in Denmark, to more wow. How do we reduce the land take, densify the area, increase the density? But when I say increase the density, the spaces in between embrace nature. So you work with nature to embrace nature. I have to admit, people even in Denmark are split about this solution. Why? People feel densifying the built environment might interfere with your privacy or with the privacy, whatever you call it in English. So people are a little bit reluctant about this kind of solution. But this is not necessarily about interfering with your privacy. I will be very quick. Some European countries now, as well, they adopted this philosophy, the 3-30-300 model. What they said, every citizen should have access to 3 trees from a window. Every neighborhood should be covered, at least 30% of that neighborhood should be covered by green and trees, and every citizen in any neighborhood should have access to a green park within the first 300 meters. And some European countries now, they are trying to work on this formula. And this is, as I said, an example in Denmark, where they start really densifying the built environment, but embracing nature with it. But as I said, people are really worried about it. Just before I finish, there is another question. Is achieving a critical mass of people, density of people, essential or crucial to deliver of 20 minutes? Absolutely yes. Because if you don't have enough people and enough critical mass, you cannot justify investing in this area or providing school or GP or services or amenities or even sometimes bus stop. So the critical mass of people is really crucial to justify. Also, the range of activities in the area draw people. The more they are diverse, the more it enable people to meet their daily needs, but bring people to stay, to work, and to live, and to prosper. So we need to diversify that as well. Another thing, place equality matter most. Place equality matter most. This is the journey and the experience and the destination amenity as well as proximity, because this will affect the people behavior. That's another thing, my colleagues. The behavior, how do we control people behavior and how do we create that social behavior? I will be very quick. What the relationship between environment and behavior is assumed in 20 minutes neighborhood? I need to say something. People quickly adopt their travel behavior or patterns of traveling according to the context of street layout. If you create an environment which invites people to drive a car, they will buy a car and they will drive a car. So the urban structures and urban morphology and urban patterns you create will affect automatically our behavior. So it's not enough to say to people, oh, please cycle because cycling is good to your health. That's not enough. The context you create should help change people's behavior. Hence, it's so crucial we understand clearly the intersection between the built environment we create and the public life. We need to start really rethinking about those urban morphology, the plot, the public realm, the active uses, the massing. I think we have lost those, and we need to revisit those principles. And I would like to say as well, building social capital is key, because it will really influence the social behavior and social patterns. Not everything should be about big commercial economy. We need to start thinking about local social economy. As my colleague said, local economy at local scale is very important, but also how do we perceive time and place? It's small, slow, human, everyday culture, quality of life, or even having an ice cream. A neighborhood to me is a combination of plan layering, of how do we shape the physical in order to shape people perceptions, but also to shape decision makers' perceptions. So shaping the three things is really very crucial. But this will require top-down and bottom-up approach. And we as a professional, we are what I call them, the middle in and the middle out. Sometimes we act on the behalf of the top-down, sometimes we act on behalf of the bottom up, and we need to mediate this relationship. But collaboration is messy, is fuzzy as well. And remember, community is not homogeneous mass. Dealing with deprived area, so different from affluent areas, because the needs, the level of knowledge is different from place to place, and this will take time. You're not going to fix it tomorrow. It will take sometimes 10 to 20 years to create that cultural change. And my last comments, I will just show 2 or 3 things. This is not about the physical stuff, but also placemaking is important. It needs bottom-up and top-down approach. It needs to build the trust, and I'm sure Rosina will say this will require from us to act and think differently. Thank you.
I would like to thank you very much to Professor. Very excellent fact now and today, how we have to live, not in future, today. I'm very honored to invite my friend from New European Bauhaus platform, where we have a wonderful day in Brussels a couple months ago, Miss Rosina Spinoy from Belgium Design Council, design strategist, social entrepreneur, and general manager of BITS Belgium. Warm welcome, Rosina. The stage is yours. Thank you. So nice that you came to Ljubljana at last.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here again. I was here in 2017 and remember it very well with all the students. And I also very much relate to you as well, because I think the majority of you are interior design students, yeah? I studied interior architecture and design many, many years ago and have evolved into some of the spaces that Hassam's also been sharing with you about urban design, social design, and participatory design. So I would love to share some of that experience and some of the projects that I've been working on, and some of the people that have influenced me. And going back to the sort of urban design aspect, Jane Jacobs many years ago was a community builder, an urbanist, and spoke about some of the things that Hassam was also sharing with you about population density, about the short blocks and mixed-use buildings and the things we need to consider. And so for me, the journey has been really moving from designing the inside to how do we design these inclusive, sustainable communities, and what does that mean? And so I started this NGO, non-profit organization of improvement districts, and they were stemming from a global, I guess, branding of business improvement districts that existed since the 1960s from Northern America. I kind of moved and thought, how can I redesign these improvement districts, not to just include business, but to really take a holistic human, planet-centered approach, working with local governments, working with businesses, working with the communities to think how can we co-design an inclusive, sustainable community. And of course, again, we mentioned before about the Sustainable Development Goals, and this has been at the core for me of how we work, indeed, not in the silos, but in an interconnected way with all the Sustainable Development Goals. Also coming from Brussels, I know they also were looking at the economy of the donut economy. I don't know if you've heard at all of Kate Raworth. She wrote a very famous book called The Donut Economy. She's an economist, and it was looking at the planetary boundaries and working our way in, and how do we redesign our economies. So Brussels also kind of took this approach with the Ministry of Economy, of thinking about the planetary boundaries and everything we need to think about, and then we moved to this shifting economy. And indeed, we need a new way of thinking. You're the future. Designers, we need so much creativity. You're the ones that are going to solve these wicked problems, not just in interiors, but also outside in community. As we've heard this morning, as we said from our colleagues, how do we create a different experience? What can we do to redesign our systems? We need to move from this centralized hierarchical way of working, moved from that to kind of decentralized, but now we need interconnectivity. We need to work together in an integrated, multi-sectoral approach, jumping from interiors to outside, to social design, participatory design, urban design. We need to think of the whole. And also, we need creativity. I cannot emphasize enough how much we need that creativity. We need our cities and communities to also think and act like a creative lab. This was from the WAG Society in the Netherlands, of thinking about how do we work from this fab lab to a fab city, which, as Professor Naderheim said also with the new European Bauhaus, it's taking this approach, how do we link the arts, the sciences, how do we really come together and experiment and create something bottom up, top down, horizontal, all different ways that we need to work. And we need the social innovation, we need the fab labs, we need the institutions to be behind us. We just can't work and go forward unless we change the way we think. And that's something we really need to do. I'm going to now zone in a little bit from the presentation that Hassam gave, and I'm going to now zone into a 20-minute city in my neighbourhood. As mentioned, I've been living in Brussels for about 20 years. You can hear I'm Scottish. I've also got a Scottish accent I've not lost. It's a very complex system in Belgium. We've got several governments. We've got 3 languages. We've got 3 regions. And, you know, it's about thinking about that complexity and what can I do as a designer? What can I do to influence my environment? And again, what I started to do, and we've heard it before, it's connecting the dots, systemic thinking. How, just like we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, we can't work in silos. One Sustainable Development Goal affects the other. That one affects another one. So it's interconnected way of thinking. So this is my municipality, Kuckelberg. It's in the northwest side of Brussels, and I'm going to talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that I think that has. And also a little bit of an outline of the density aspect that we speak about. It's one of the most dense municipalities in Brussels. It's only got about 22,000 people, but it's, as I said, incredibly dense, but it has everything going for it, in the sense that it's a 20-minute neighbourhood. On the surface, we've got that infrastructure, we've got the churches, we've got cultural centres, sports centres. This is a big kind of focal point within my municipality. We've got this huge Art Deco church, the 5th largest in the world. And I want to talk about beyond the infrastructure of the 20-minute neighbourhood, to look at the services, the experience that we heard about this morning, How do I experience it as a mother, as a resident, as a designer, as a professional? What's my experience in this? So, is that my time up? I don't know what that is.
Tell me, sorry, I was listening. But my phone unlocked.
Come on, am I that boring?
We thought it was a presentation.
I can't
Okay, I've got a bit of music going on here. Thanks for that. That was a nice bit of entertainment. But, so we've got education, we've got different schools, we've got French speaking, we've got Dutch speaking. But you know what? Underneath that surface, there's the challenges. We've got, you know, there's this trend of having the school street and having this participation of making it pedestrian free, which they've done. But how does that impact the rest of the area? So because one street has become pedestrianised, it means that there's more traffic in another. So they're not really thinking on a systemic level to say how, if we do make one street sustainable, can we not affect the air pollution in another street with having traffic jams? How can we really design our system that it is truly sustainable and inclusive? We think about the shopping, we were talking about the mixed use. Again, we need to be thinking, who are our demographic? Who are the people in our community? What do we need more? How can we think and supply the right kind of shops for the people in the community? There isn't that thinking, but yet we've got the infrastructure, we've got lots of shops. If we're thinking about transport and buses and trams, well, when I was a mother with my young kids and I'd walk through the park and want to go into town, there wasn't the accessibility. There was lots of stairs to go down into the underground system. There was no elevator. So I have to think, how was I experiencing that? It wasn't inclusive, it wasn't accessible. How can we also think about accessibility, people with disabilities, people with limited mobility? We need to think about the diversity of the people and the community. Also public spaces, thinking about indeed what we heard before as well. We need that dynamic, vibrant spaces. But again, are these maybe safe for women and girls if they're going through a park at night? Well, how can we design it to feel safe, to have a sense of belonging? So there's lots of considerations that we need to think. And also, how do we really think about inclusion for all? So I, in my municipality, decided, what can I do? How can I work and reach out to the local municipality? So we talk about a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. And I thought, what's the identity of my neighbourhood? We've got this basilica. Is it the Art Deco basilica? Do we create a bit of a vibe and create an improvement district using some of the visual identity or the architecture of this building? In reality, it's actually now identified as the chocolate village because we've got lots of chocolate factories. So actually that identity was not at all related to the built environment. It was related to Belgian chocolate, which I can't complain, it's fantastic. So it didn't bother me at all, but it was, we've got this chocolate village, we had this fountain built there, which was supposed to represent cocoa beans. And then you do things to do with the chocolate, relating it to the chocolate. So it's thinking about identity, but also thinking about collaboration and not competition. What's existing in this municipality? So we were trying to think, okay, we've got this wonderful Aboriginal gallery, we've got the basilica, we've got the chocolate factory. How do we create collaboration? How can we design a sense of community through collaboration, which would help the business side of economy, but also the social side? It creates a vibe, it creates a sense of community. It brings people together. So we did a kind of slow tourism strategy for the municipality, linking, rather than then competing for people, thinking about not the self, but the collective we. We really looked at different aspects, and this is really, for me as a designer, it's looking at the creativity, looking at the tech, looking at the place. How do we take the whole? And so also we looked at some of the businesses that had never opened up before. This was an umbrella making company, actually. They supply all the big brands. Nobody knew about it. So we thought, how can we link it to the schools? How can they learn about umbrella technology? How can they learn about the history, the heritage of this 100-year-old business? How can they open up and actually bring community in? How can we use some of what they have in our places and create a little bit of, sort of tactical urbanism and a little bit of fun in a place? Also really looking at how I could work with the local municipality, the culture centres, the sports centres. How can we design together a street that would be for pedestrians and take the cars out? So we had a sense of experimentation for 2 years. We decided to close off the street to cars and to get the citizens involved, do participatory design, and to actually work with the schools, work with the students, think about biodiversity. We're near a big park where the Basilica is. This is a street where there's also a school is close by. How do we get the kids to think about inclusivity and accessibility for their grandmothers, for their grandfathers with limited mobility, or people with disabilities? How do we encourage that biodiversity? How do we create a narrative? So the narrative became about creating a feminizing street name strategy. So it was named after the Bronte sisters, Bronte Plain, because we said, right, we want to, as women, take space in public space. So how can we do it? We thought, let's change the names of the streets. So we started to do that. We had community gardens, bringing the community together, again, creating a sense of community for those people that were feeling isolated, living alone, thinking about health and well-being. How do we bring them together? There was a building in the local park. It wasn't used. We wanted to have a cafe, so we crowdfunded. We raised money. Then we worked with local government. They matched the funding, and with volunteers, with community, we designed and co-designed a fantastic space together where it was in the woods. And again, you know, if you know about nature, and certainly we experienced it yesterday walking about the city, the nature, the sense of well-being, it's neuroscientifically proven. It has an impact on you if you're in around greenery and nature. It helps people with mental health. And then I'm going to go a bit more even, I'm going to go narrower and think, how could I even impact my own environment? So we had a real jungle of a garden, and I thought, right, I'm going to work with the neighbours and we're going to create some more biodiversity. We're going to think about pollinator plants, flowers, and I can see a smile there in the corner, someone else that's also passionate about flowers. And how do we also, during COVID time, like many did, we thought about local, growing our own veg. I'm really proud of my courgettes there, I have to say. And then thinking about little rooftop gardens, how can we encourage that? I think in the new European Bauhaus, there was also a wonderful project in Barcelona of Xavier's rooftop gardens, where he was really spreading this enthusiasm of having rooftop gardens. We did the same. Our neighbours did the same. Our neighbour's neighbour did the same. So there's impact. If you can think, how can you create impact as a designer? We did some projects about care in the community. Something I'm also very passionate about. One of my sons has got mental health challenges. He's 16 coming on 17. He has a lot of challenges, and he's also on the autism spectrum. He has a lot of challenges on different aspects. So I wanted to have the empathy. How can I see the world through his eyes? How does he experience the spaces? How does he experience the services? Because when I spoke before also about sports and culture, we've got all these things in the community, but they're not inclusive. They don't have classes, or they don't have anything for kids with disabilities. So I'm thinking, yes, we've got a 20-minute city and as an infrastructure, but not as a service. And we need to think deeper. We thought about public spaces. How can we create a sense of safety, create a sense of security? And we also collaborated, again, during COVID. I thought, right, I'm going to gather women together and think about how do we empower women, think about public space and climate change. And we did a wonderful initiative also collaborating with the United Nations, with UN Habitat, and bringing together people working within public space and thinking about safety and how women experience the city. And again, we were thinking about sports and thinking of how can we teach women self-defense, how can we work in a space and think in a creative way of using sports in public space for women. But also, and we heard it also this morning, we have to think about the future. What are the future scenarios? What's happening? You need to have an awareness as a designer. What are the trends? What are the things happening? Not just in interior design, but in design in general, because one thing influences another thing. So, for example, what's happening in the future of retail? Now, we may have thought before it would be really this kind of dystopian tech aspect, but what did I hear this morning in the news? And we've heard it from IKEA, we've heard it now from Zara. They're looking at stores that can take back second-hand goods to resell. So what are the trends that are happening there? Think about repair shops. Maybe as to have a sustainable community, we need to think about more repair shops. Not maybe owning a lawnmower, maybe we rent it from the repair shop and the rest of the community can do that as well. What are we thinking about healthcare? Again, there's lots of trends and things happening with AI and tech and really the future of healthcare and wearables, etc. But again, we need to think of the holistic. How are we dealing with the human-centric approach or the planet-centric approach? Are we having enough green spaces for people that they can walk in and feel that they have a sense of well-being? During COVID, there was also a lot of inequalities. A lot of people were not able to access green spaces. A lot of people don't have the luxury of having a garden. So how are we thinking in a systemic way of healthcare in a holistic way as well, and not just in the tech? Education, you know, again, thinking about the trends and the interconnectivity. Just tell me if I'm going too long. Somebody needs to, I need to stop now. Yeah. Again, we were linking inclusive education, kids that are in schools with, like the special needs schools with mainstream. How can they experience creativity in tech? Because they're normally left out of that discussion. Looking at future of work, corporate social responsibility, local businesses giving their space to local diverse community, intergenerational, to showcase their art for free. So people would buy chocolate, people would buy art. Creates a sense of community. We also need to look as designers on materials, the future and products. We need to think about the green tech and think about what are we doing there. How can we also learn on the other side of tech, but how can we also think of how the future of sustainable indigenous design? Let's also link to the global south. What can we learn from sustainable practices and sustainable materials as designers, as well as thinking about the tech? Quick quote there that I'll just run back. Okay, in Brussels, just to say, you know, we also had a dream of creating a big pedestrian zone right in the centre 10 years ago, and it happened. Got rid of the cars, created some nice green spaces. It's not perfect, we could do with some more trees, but this for me is about community. That stemmed from community taking the space and actually having a picnic in the street and overtaking the space that became a bit of activism, that then the city recognised the top down must meet the bottom up and we must work together. So just to sum up very quickly, what we need is really about that connecting the dots. We need that new way of thinking. We need that ecological resilience, and we need good governance. We need to be transparent. We need to work together. We need to work collaboratively. And we need to think about the future. Always end on this, on Yayoi Kusama, because she's been my inspiration. Women in their 80s who had mental health challenges and who designs a world of polka dots. Her creativity is endless. And that's what we must think, and that's what you must think. Creativity, connect the dots, and you're the next generation that can solve problems together with each other. Thank you.
I'm progressive again.
You can come in as soon as possible.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
to Miss Rosina Spinoi. Very inspirative. And now I am inviting on the stage architect Inge Kalan-Lieber from Faculty of Design. She is representing the student project. The stage is yours, Inge.
Thank you.
Warm welcome.
Thank you, Nada. Very warm welcome all colleagues, guests and students. Dobrodošli vsi, naši študentje, moji kolegi, profesori. In a few sentences, I will just show you the students' projects, and I think that this is just we did in a small baby steps approach to all you've said. Now we are teaching our students exactly what you've said and what we've heard now in these all perfect speeches. With my colleague Petra Kocijancic, we did with the students in the studio of public space development. Oh, I mistake this. Conceptual redevelopment of garden and the park area in the urban center of Ljubljana. And the aim and the purpose of this was the networking with neighbors and the children and all these inhabitants here in Ljubljana. There is a green park, you can see here, and a large garden area in the urban part of the city next to Matičič Stadium. Probably you've all heard already about our very well-known architect, Josef Plečnik. He was the most important architect for our country and as well for the Europe, especially for Praga and Vienna. He did really a lot. And this, the part that was, this part was where these are the gardens, and this is the green area. It's near our very important road, street, Dunajska. The purpose of the conceptual design of the task is the conception, connection, and revitalization, as well as the modern arrangement of the garden areas and the multi-purpose of the park areas. Here you can see as well. Currently, all garden and grass surfaces are in a poor and unfunctional condition. The task was divided in 2 studios that are conceptually connected public space developments for the development of public space interior design. In the public space studio, students were introduced to the theoretical foundations for the proper design of city squares, shared space, parks, recreational areas, sports as well, and a communication infrastructure. This is the situation nowadays. On the basis of sustainable planning and according to the guidelines, considering the current situation, conceptual tasks were created that will enable the connection between the private gardens, here you can see them, growing vegetables and fruits, and the public multi-purpose landscape grass area intended for the sale of produce market, children's recreation area, skate park, walking paths, cycling paths, and connection with the footpath above this small street is here. And of course, shared space. The main point of this was that the students did know that shared space means that the most important are pedestrians, inhabitants, children, cyclists, and then the cars, because they must come to all this, to these houses. The purpose of the conceptual concept is to connect the surrounding residents with a diverse offer to enable a green environment for recreation and partnership socializing. This is the part of the city of neighborhoods. So, and now you will see this in a short film presentation of our students' work. Domen will show us. Okay, just a second, please. results of this project. So this was it. Thank you for your attention, and I think we will now, in a few months, in 1 month, we will present these projects to our mayor of Ljubljana after the elections. We hope we will see who will be next, and I think these are the baby steps to approach together gathering and neighborhood living in the urban city. So thank you for your attention. And please.
Thank you, Inga. Inge, thank you very much.
It's okay, I'm here.
And thank you, of course, to all your students, also to Petra Kutjancic. Thank you. Do we have Valentina Bazzani?
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Valentina.
Hi.
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 It's a summer on Madeira.
Yes.
What is going on?
So,
I would like to introduce Dr. Valentina Bazzani, who joined us online from University of Madeira, Portugal. Warm welcome, Valentina.
thank you very much. Thank you very much for
The
the
stage is
invitation.
yours.
Thanks. Thanks. So let me try to share full screen my presentation. So thank you very much for this invitation and being with you, even though virtually, but I'm very, very excited to be part of this great event. Today, I would like to share with you my experience as a design educator and some of the questions and reflections which have emerged in the last 8 years of teaching at the University of Madeira at the Department of Art and Design. So, beyond the definition, what designers or what you, future designers in the audience, I understood that there are several future designers there, understand about sustainability. It is a term that gets a lot of attention today. We have heard a lot today, yes, but it holds a high level of complexity and technicalities. So are we sure that technical aspects, models, definition can support future designers in thinking and designing for sustainability? So I have the luck of living and working in the island of Madeira, not just because it is a magical place to be, but also because it allows me and allows also my colleagues to observe and reflect upon the limits of this habitat and its natural resources. It is possible to observe the fragility of the natural cycles of natural resources available and to speculate on the concept of circularity that we've heard before. But despite the lush of the vegetation that we can encounter on this beautiful island, the richness of the sea, the stunning landscapes, I can also observe the transformations that are taking place, not just in the urban areas. Unfortunately, these unsustainable transformations, quite aggressive, are happening in the natural landscape between the various valleys and the different woodlands of the island. So, for the sake of the economic growth, we could say that the island is witnessing the impact of unsustainable decisions, an impact that can be already be observed as a negative for the natural environment and probably won't bring long-term benefit neither to local businesses nor to the local communities. So in Madeira, we can identify the same global challenge that concerns changing the way we see growth, progress, and wealth.
Full screen presentation.
There is a great urgency to question, especially from an ethical point of view, and reconsider our beliefs to break with our unsustainable habits. So how should we educate the future generations, not just future designers, but people, future generations, to take care? And here I try to quote Donna Haraway with taking care, the definition of taking care. Once again, beyond graphs, models, definitions, and buzzword, how can we foster a sense of caring for the others beyond the human beings, caring for our habitats and as a whole? So if caring about or of the environment and everything that regards it, maybe we should try to reconnect with nature, spend time in it, learning in the open air, out of the constraints of the built environment. Walking could become a learning method. By walking, we are moving through nature, and this action, this activity allow us to understand our relationship with it, reminding ourselves that we humans are part of it. To learn about nature, to understand it, to understand us as part of it, we must learn to listen first and listen to the many types of expertise and disciplines that study it. We must train our capacity in considering and accepting all points of view and informed opinions that sometimes are even in conflict, to then give sense to this complexity of voices and knowledge. Finally, I would say that to learn to listen leads us to become good communicators. If caring about or of social matters and people, when we talk about sustainability, then we should learn to listen also to people, observe them, spend time with them in their own habitat, empathize with their stories, dreams, and struggles, to become aware of the real needs, even those which remain hidden behind the apparently more urgent problems. And finally, I would say to learn to listen leads us to become able to value inclusivity. To care has got a strong connection with taking responsibility for what we decide, for how we take action, how we decide to communicate with the others. So learning by doing puts us in the position of managing obstacles, unexpected issues, mistakes to overcome quickly, and to have a direct dialogue with people. Learn from their perspectives, their feelings, and try to include them even in the process as much as possible. Being collaborative, being able to collaborative sounds an easy thing or skill. We have heard about collaboration in the previous presentations. It's really important. Often it is mistaken for cooperation, but collaboration is different because it requires lots of training, lots of work in learning to listen what the others have to say, what they really mean. And collaboration requires a personal sensitivity in stepping into other people's position and points of view. It involves a great quantity of motivation, trust, compromise, and humility. Learning to collaborate leads to opening the doors on new knowledge, on new ideas that could benefit the sustainable development of communities, economies, and so their environments and habitats. So if caring about or of economy and governments, the last circle, pillar of sustainability, should we start from questioning the meaning of growth and progress? Perhaps by exploring other ways to generate value to benefit economically communities and so also natural ecosystems would also allow us to speculate on more sustainable and just futures. So all the images you have seen in these last slides regard some of the latest projects and learning activities proposed to our design students at the University of Madeira. In particular, I used to challenge my students in reflecting on how to balance their creative and strategic process between the desirability, feasibility, and viability of their ideas, where desirability regards not just the human needs or dreams, but respond also to the needs of other organisms, natural organisms, so that they can keep sustaining their own habitat, as we should do as well. So I try to communicate to the students that talking about sustainability means first to reconsider or remind ourselves that we human beings are part of nature and our needs should be identified and answered in balance with the planet's needs and well-being. So before I have mentioned that perhaps one of the biggest obstacles to positive change towards sustainable development is the system of values and beliefs that influence our lives and decision-making. In front of such a big challenge, I would like to close my presentation with a message of hope here. The story of a river that after 140 years of legal debate finally is recognized as a legal entity because it is a living entity. The river Wanganui in New Zealand is the life and well-being of many organisms and ecosystems and of the Wanganui iwi tribe. It has required many, many years for this recognition to happen, but it has inspired many new ones that are happening right now and has just set up the basis for how to change the way we should understand and think about sustainability. And with this, I close my presentation. Thank you very much.
Where's Nada?
I'm very privileged that every year for the last 6 years I've been invited down here to do some lectures for you students and to be part of the global Going Green Global series. And I'm also I've got sort of as a habit now that I'm sort of moderating the panel discussions when we have these conferences. So that's my role today as well. And we have a nice panel here consisting of Dragan, that you've heard, Rosina, Kena Ali, and you can present yourself briefly afterwards, Lynn Elvis, Roger Klum, and Hussam, who has always already presented his sort of studies. But before we start the panel, we have a short presentation by the last member of the panel, Katja Tur from Adra Mobile, and we'll have a short presentation from her before we start the panel, and then we'll pick up on a few of the things that have been said today, and hope that we can sort of ignite some discussions among yourselves as well. There is no presentation?
Something wrong with the file, we can't share it.
Okay.
I'm terribly sorry.
That saves us a few minutes. But it's, I know that this presentation revolved around a project that you collaborated with Faculty of Design. Can you say just a few words about that?
Yes, I'm from Automobile, and we are a manufacturing company from Slovenia. We produce recreational vehicles, and recently we've collaborated with the Faculty of Design and alongside our company Podgorje, which provides us with furniture parts. And we've joined forces on a project called 2-in-1, and we picked vans, our smallest vehicles, and because they're the most mobile ones. And the idea behind it was that our vehicles are mostly used for vacation purposes. And you know how it is. We usually have just a few weeks per year of off work time. And therefore, even with some weekend getaways, our vehicles get used only for that time. So most of the time it's being parked somewhere and forgotten. And the idea was to give it another purpose and to maybe with some modular and multifunctional solutions adjust the interiors so it's used for working space as well for some occupations like carpenters and architects, photographers, pharmacists, stuff like that. Students made some pretty good solutions on that stuff.
Super. We'll see if we can pick up on a few of the things and latch it to the discussions that we've had. But before we start the discussion, I was thinking that three panelists here who didn't have presentations, if you could introduce yourselves briefly, Hannah.
Okay, so my name is Dr. Hannah Ali. I'm from University of the Arts, London. I lead a course on MS Service Design at London College of Communication in London. And I also run a consultancy called InfoBridge Global that works with tech innovation solutions for companies around the world. So that's more like a global organization. I work mainly in South Asia, in the MENA region, in Africa, and in London.
Very good. Lynn?
Hello, I'm Lynn Elwins. I work as an independent design manager. So I work with lots of design agencies and then also businesses who want to work with designers. So I work as a bridge between those two. I'm here this week teaching design thinking to universities as a process. So yeah, I'm doing that this week on the teaching program.
And then Robert, you're the local hero.
Yes. Welcome everybody. Slovenia is so open that you're always welcome. And it is really a big honor to be part of the Faculty of Design also this year. I have quite a big scale of portfolio of my work. So yes, coming out of faculty, I have this year New European Bauhaus students. And, last year we did an amazing project, which was really going towards sustainability, towards how to organize things, how to connect design, urbanism, architecture, with of course delivery at the end, because at the end we are looking for healthy living. In my opinion, doing what we are doing now and today, what we are talking is we need to find solution how to bring healthy life back to the society, how to look for local components, materials, how to actually address society to live better life. I work 24/7. Nevertheless, I have really several companies. One company is for sustainability, modular housing, increasingly really recently in this year, the name is Green Star. I have a company, 40 years old company, a family company for furniture, which is doing sustainability furniture, natural furniture for 40 years. What means sustainability furniture? It means long lasting at the first step. So not to have a furniture which is coming out for low price, calling it with natural materials, and tomorrow is broken. We need to manufacture high quality. What in Slovenia was in the past. So Slovenia is known as really amazing craft company society.
Very good, Robert. I've been asked gently by Nada to make this a little short since we are running a little late, as we always are, because there are so many things to be said. And we have also a framework which is huge, World Habitat Day. It's basically it's World Life Day, because the habitats, even though it might sound often as habitat is all about urbanization, habitat is about the place, the locality that every single one of us live in or move around. Habitat is the place that we are in. It's not about big buildings. It's about life, where we live our lives. So it's a much more complex question than just urbanization or architecture and so on. But we try to sort of fit it in any case. And the first question I have is Habitat Day and climate change and urbanization. If we look at the footprints of individuals around the world, an individual in Qatar, which is probably one of the densest places in the world, is about 37 tons of carbon dioxide per year. The Faroe Islands, which is probably one of the least dense places in the world, the footprint is 0.04 tons per individual per year. And just to sort of put it into perspective, in Slovenia, it is about 7 kilos per year. So there is something also saying that everything outside of the cities has also sort of a role in this to play. And I'm just thinking the bottom line of the Sustainable Development Goals is leaving no one behind. Do we tend to leave the countryside and the rural areas and those who are not a part of this cultural elite? Do we tend to leave them behind when we have this discussion about what the future looks like? Dragan, does the dream society, does it work out there in the countryside as well?
Well, that's very interesting, because we are facing different challenges these years, and it is very important to understand that our society is always in some process of change, and we have to reimagine our future, because many countryside stays empty, and our cities are growing. But with this so-called development, we are changing. We are facing with many challenges. So if we look back, I don't know, 20, 30 years, we will find a world which is quite different than this world we are living in. And many problems we are facing right now were the problems, for example, 30, 40 years ago. No one was talking about it. For example, when I was of your ages, I was living in quite a different world, and no one talking about environment, about pollution, but about industrialization, cars, new ways of transport, etc., etc. But we forgot the essential topics, and that's why we are facing with different challenges. For example, in Belgrade, we all have air cleaners in our apartments. Red alarms are everyday practice, so we are watching air pollution on our mobile apps, and that's not a world I want to live in. I want to live in a clean world. I want to live in some better world. That's why I know that it's quite important to start to working. Actually, we are a little bit late, but what to do right now? Let's change our behavior, and let's change our way of thinking. So let's make new dream society.
Very good. I think there was one very interesting sort of play between Usam and Rosina, where you had this sort of big picture of density and urbanization, and you went really down onto your own balcony. I'm just thinking, there's clearly some very, very positive and alluring sort of images of this kind of civic engagement in the local community and in density. But I'm thinking, does it also have a backside? Does it also have an adverse sort of side that we are living closer and closer and more on the necks of each other?
For me, I don't think so. I think there's a big advantage now. I mean, we've seen during COVID period what a challenge it was for supply chains. I mean, even as simple as, if we had local production and local companies making masks, for example, and we didn't need to import them from China, it would have been a huge advantage. And I think, we need to think locally, and we need to also go back to that conversation that you just said in your opening statement. I mean, we need to also look even beyond our villages and rural areas, but indeed on the global context. If we think of the global south and global north, I mean, there's been, if I think of what's been happening in South Asia, and 33 million people have been displaced because of floods in Pakistan, and they produce less than 1% of the global greenhouse gases. And what can we've lived in an extractive society for so long, of pulling out from the global south. How can we think, and I think Hassan mentioned it yesterday in the workshop also, of regenerative design? There's a great book called Designing Regenerative Cultures, actually by Daniel Christian Wall, and it's about how can we give back? What can we do in that local level? But what we're seeing also is there's still an element of giving back in that local side. There's local community gardens that are then supplying local restaurants. And it's making food more accessible for those that are buying around them from that restaurant. And that restaurant is also employing people with disabilities. And then the food is grown locally. So there's a circular economy aspect to that. So it may seem that we're going small, but we're going small and still having a we attitude as a local community, which we need.
We just discussed in the break a little bit the interventions, because this is all based on interventions. We generate projects and funds to do something, but some of the most interesting and fascinating cities in the world, they have been they're untouched in terms of city planning. They just grew organically. Is that something that we just cannot allow any longer to happen? Or do we have to interfere? Do we have to intervene and plan the cities and the urban environments down to the minutest detail?
Absolutely, yes. You have to have interventions which meet the local need. And I think cities has to be organic. I am not against the growth, but it has to be organic in the sense, where do we put our resources? Where do we put our money? I think business as usual approach is not working, and we have admit plans, and we really need, I like what you said, we talk a lot about cities, but we don't talk about the components of cities, and which is to me the smaller part, which is the neighborhood level. We do forget. I think we need to start revisiting the concept, what cities entails in Europe, and cities should be to me, and I really repeat this again, we need to start talking about how do we make cities a connected neighborhood between rural, suburban, and urban. That's hierarchical structure, I am afraid, has been missed, especially with the capitalism agenda. So issue of localism, I think, at the heart of it. And don't get me wrong, the current recession in Europe and in the UK, plus the post-pandemic, I think to me is an opportunity. Why? Because local community, not only politicians or decision makers, start accepting this idea. How do we make most of what we have locally? Can we live locally? And I think this idea of moving from consumerism perspective, where everything is just you bring stuff from China or from Far East and so on. No, can we really revisit the concept of local circular economy, where we produce stuff locally and consume locally? Especially, I like what you said, how do we reduce our aggregate carbon dioxide is really very key for the next 5 and 10 years.
So there is the architectural side of it, and the sort of deciding on scales and structures, and then there is the very local, how do you create local value chains and collaborations. I know that you, Ena, in your both in your work and in studies, there's a lot of the engagement, civic engagement. How do you engage individuals in design processes?
Yes.
I'm just thinking, is everyone sort of ready to be part of this?
No, that's a simple answer. I think I'm just going to exemplify this very quickly, looking at young design students sitting here right now. How do we engage you all? So we talk about, and this is a question for you now to think about. What can you do? Or do you want to do? And I think, again, coming back to me now, we look at engagement at two different levels. So when we talk about the micro level of sustainability and circular economy, we think policy making, we think urban redesigning. It's big. Do you all relate to it? Can you now think that, okay, I'm going to go and change the policy? Some of you can, maybe, some of you can't. But when you think about what can I do, it becomes individual. It becomes about you. Do you recycle your waste at home? Is your mother or father resistant to recycling, and do you create a system at home that helps them do it? So again, talking about what action you take, making it more individual maximizes engagement at a micro level. And when you go to the bigger macro level, that engagement feeds into it. So for example, when we design a policy which is human-centered, people-centric, context-centered, for example, our policy design for Ljubljana will be different from a policy design for London, because it's a different ecosystem, it's a different urban living style. So when a policy is designed, taking people, co-designed with people, including people's opinion, what do they need? How can we maximize their engagement? What is stopping engagement? Problem solving around these barriers to engaging with green initiatives. Then that's where the engagement maximizes. So again, kind of putting it all together is, we look at policy making, we look at urban redesign, which is excellent. I really like Assam's idea of 20-minute cities. And I really like the idea because it kind of personalizes the space. So when one of you, when you're thinking about coming to uni, your college, you think about, do I take the bus, or do I walk, or do I cycle? It becomes a very individual decision, and then whatever you choose can have a different level of green response. So you actually contributed by walking, or by cycling, or coming on the car. So it has to be individual. It has to be about you guys. Think about what you do in everyday life and how does it impact. And from there on, you bring in your design skills. Then think about as an individual, as a designer, as a team of designers, as an educator, and then as a policymaker, as a company owner, how do I change the space that I live in? And that maximizes engagement. When you make it personal, it has to be personal.
I'm thinking these discussions that we have were, I guess, as you said, Dragan, we've always talked about pollution and a few things, but the focus on sustainability and the acuteness of actually reacting to everything that's going on around us has become much, much more sort of present. How does that influence companies like you? What kind of role does the sustainability and the sort of we're really fucked right now discussions. How do they how do they affect on your discussions as a private company making caravans?
We've done quite some work on that topic in the past, but we started really hard working on sustainability topic this year when we are just setting up our sustainability strategy. And we learned that we do just a small percentage by now. And we didn't set up just the product-wise strategy, because it's just one of the 6 points that we discovered needs to be care of. For instance, we have product and designing the product, and what materials we choose, what shape we choose, how does it, how is the using of our product polluting the planet as well. So the consumer experience afterwards, and also our supply chains and our suppliers as well, by educating them towards that. And also the leadership, because we have to be inspired, like it's been said, like as an internal culture about it. And then also how do we reflect that on society? It's our responsibility. And we are taking care of each of those points separately and together as well. And we find ourselves there's really a lot we can do about it. And
does it affect the discussions you have on a daily basis in the company?
Yes, it does affect our work and our decisions in daily life, yeah.
And I'd like to ask the same question to you as an architect. You've been doing very sort of prominent works like the pavilion, that kind of, but you also work in a smaller scale. How has being an architect changed because of these discussions, because of this acuteness that we experience?
We are all talking about personalization in our life. So when you are personally engaged as an architect or as a user, then for sure you will do something different. And in my opinion, it is not acceptable to deliver things from China. Nevertheless, they are good, because if we can manufacture it locally, is it in Germany, is it in Denmark, is it in Slovenia? Why we are not doing it here? You were talking before, we were ex-Yugoslavia together. We were one country 30 years ago. So we were living quality life. Nevertheless, it was, don't talk too much, don't think too much. But nevertheless, local community was really as a community. One was craftsman for wood, one was, manufacturing one part. there was a small company doing this. Everything, vegetable was from the garden, everything was here. So we are going back actually 30, 40 years back to be normal again. Strange on one hand, because of digitalization, because of development, because of globalization, and for sure, we must be, on real platform that the big groups will not allow to do this. Why? Because they cannot, satisfy needs by the money. But nevertheless, if we will talk with our students, what is important? If our students will, for example, work on an apartment building or in the society nearby and will select local products, local materials, this is first step, in my opinion. And this is what I'm trying to achieve, and this is what I'm trying to develop, not just, to waste money. Now we have several big players in Slovenia who really achieve big success in the life of the companies. They have big money. And they are really now thinking how to invest in this sustainability concept world. We are talking about Outfit 7, we are talking about electronics, we are talking about many important players who can really support this, but the community like faculty and school is to teach kids. You need not just to do waste management, but to do also product and healthy and natural implementation in your local localization.
Lane, you work with a lot of different kinds of design practices.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, here we have fashion designers, we have communication designers, visual communication, and what we're talking about here is often, big scale cities and sort of big structures. How can designers coming from a fashion design education or from visual communication, how can they find a space in this and play a role in this sort of this big movement?
Yeah. So, challenge the brief. That's one of the biggest things that all designers can do. If someone says to you, I want to design, I was talking with students yesterday, we were using the scenario of designing a new t-shirt, just as a simple thing. But the question becomes, does the world need another t-shirt?
Mm-hmm.
And actually maybe it doesn't. So if the brief says, I'd like a piece of furniture, I'd like this, you have to first say, why? What for? What are we contributing? And as designers, I think then not only, we have a responsibility to challenge the briefs that we're given, and if we're going to challenge them, then part of what we also have to decide is not just what we want to move towards, we have to start asking questions about what we're not prepared to design. We have to be prepared to say no to some projects if they're not contributing, if they're not going in the right direction, if they're not adding value in a more community, neighborly way. If we're getting projects that are at their core really just continuing to be about purely commercial, and that's not easy to do because businesses have a lot to contribute, the economy has a lot to contribute, but where the money is going, where the commercial, what it's leading to beyond the sale of an item. I think that's part of the conversation that designers have to step towards and have that. But it can be done in every single brief. The question is, what is this brief for?
We'll have, because we're sort of closing in a minute, but we'll have a very short round of comments if there's anything. But it's quite interesting because I had a workshop yesterday as well with students here, and that was about sustainability and how what it would take for them to contribute. And they say, well, the only thing we can do is to make it as attractive as possible to lead a more sustainable life. We can do it by communicating messages, we can do it by providing better solutions, by making it more attractive to do the right thing. But that is what we've always done. We've made attractive products and experiences. Now we just have to make attractive choices that are more sustainable than they used to be. And somehow it's about creating a dream society version 2.0, which is based on a more sustainable future. You had a short comment, but it has to be short because I think we're sort of closing up there.
I just have 2 comments on the back of this discussion. We need to have a trust between the top-down and the bottom-up approach. That's very crucial. We need to create a trust between the top-down, and my colleagues...
Students should say something about that.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you
I
have
would like to hear them.
Tyler.
I would like to hear from our young talents what's going on in their heads. It's a most important thing on one side. On the other side, I would like to know from the companies, what do they expect? What kind of competencies do they want that are going to employ our graduates on first or second degree? And the first question, where I am really very interested, something to hear about design management or management of design. I don't know. I'm not convinced now how to express these two words. Are they compatible or not? This is the last question for our lean and expert.
Does any one of you want to pick up on Nada's challenge of commenting on this discussion? Is this something that you really feel is important for you, and how do you see yourself in this? Anyone?
Stand up.
Make your voice heard.
Everybody should
That's the first
answer
step. You need to make your voice heard.
Yes.
You need to have a voice.
There's got to be someone.
It's a safe space.
Don't feel shy. Don't feel shy. There is no stupid idea.
Yeah, just do it.
Oh.
Come on.
No grade. No grade.
Don't be shy. Come on, students.
Okay, just let me ask them a question. How many of you feel what we've been talking about? It's easy. How many of you feel it's difficult? You can raise your hands. It's easy. How many of you?
Raise your hands.
How many of you feel it's easy to do? Change the world. Okay. How many of you feel it's difficult? How many of you will believe me if I say that you can design a strategy today in 3 hours to change the world, one step at a time? How many of you feel that we can today in 3 hours?
You can? In 3 hours?
In 3 hours.
Oh.
Yeah? Excellent.
Excellent.
Okay, now I'm going to pinpoint how I can see your amazing body art. So so if you had any idea that, today I will change the world by doing this.
I don't know. Have you thought about it that much?
Anything.
Baby steps.
I'm sorry, you're the first one.
Yes,
it's always difficult.
A little bit louder, please.
But the first ones are always the pioneers. You can ask your friend, collaborate.
Yeah.
Saj lahko po slovensko govorite, pa bomo prevajali, saj ni problem.
You've done such amazing projects.
We saw you. They can speak up in their native language.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Just speak up.
We lost
Don't be shy. Znate zelo veliko, povejte.
Why Faculty of Design? Why design? What is design? Do you know that?
You are such clever students. Yes.
Yeah, there's someone who.
Okay. Very
good. Sustainable and the energy and everything that, like you said, is like we have many different categories, and if we focus on one, we can't put it all together because each of them is important by itself. but they'll only work if we like contribute to all of them together. I mean, at the moment, I don't have any ideas because I didn't, prepare for this or didn't think about it. I didn't even know I was going to speak at all. But yeah, I think it's really important that we move in this direction and that we as designers and students, as teenagers who have our future in our hands, it's important that we do something about it and move into this direction and do something for the world.
Excellent. Thank you. I hope it is in the name of the whole class. Very brave. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I also like to pick up on the other part of it. It's very, very brief.
Very much,
Yeah.
yes. Very short, I would like to ask Robert Kuhn
And also
and Ms. Kral, if I
and also
remember.
Katja, about what do you
Yes.
expect from designers? How much
Yes.
do you expect
What
that
do
they
you
know?
expect? Why cooperation with Faculty of Design?
Well, at first we expect passion and being team players because it's all about teamwork to gain something. Sorry. And and I think that our collaboration was pretty welcome because it's always good to hear unlimited minds and different points of view, and for us also it's great insights on the topic, and we also as mentors gained a lot because we are so caught up in daily work that our minds narrows and we forget about thinking outside of the box. And days like this are really reset days like this are pretty welcome. So I think that it's mutual benefit if we collaborate in any topic we pick up. Also, that sustainability is no exception here.
Thanks also to our mentors and mentors from your company, because tomorrow you are going to get Going Green Global Award for all innovation. So warm welcome tomorrow on Ljubljana Castle.
Yes. And I was thinking that we actually have Valentina with us still.
Yes, about design management. To answer very short, 2 sentences. Why management, why design, why the struggling between managers and designers?
Read Michael.
In 2 sentences.
I mean, yeah, that's a big area, and I would also, read started with that's a good answer, but because there are different cultures and different sectors of the working world, and creative, again, as young people who have chosen to come into the creative industries, there's a reason probably, why you've chosen that, because it feels more what you want to do, and that potentially will be different why other people are making reasons to go into business and run business and have a more management way of working. But I would say, as I've been talking with the students this week, this is where that design thinking, businesses, as you've just said, very well, businesses want your creativity. They want your way of working, but also you can benefit from understanding how businesses work. So I think, like many things, the citizen policy, politics, we are now in a world where we need to meet with these different types of people. Design and management has to come together because it's great when they come together. It works really well, and that's been proven.
We are working all the time, management and design, if you want, if our innovation comes into the company. And company should produce so perfect in such a quality and deliver on global markets.
A final question to Valentina, because I think there is a saying that every man is an island, and you are most certainly an island out there.
Yes.
And what you presented to us, which we unfortunately only got some fractions of, but that was very much a locally based project. But I'm thinking, if we're all islands and you're also a little remote from sort of the main, how can, even though we sort of have our own little local focus, how can we also then contribute to something on a global scale? Do you feel that what you're doing at Madeira has a sort of an impact beyond the local community?
Well, yeah. First of all, I'm sorry about the fact that my slides were not visible. So I was actually trying to match some of the contents with some contextualization, so images of Madeira. Actually, both in the teaching and in research activities that we are running here on the island, we consider the island as actually a potential test bed for circular models or way of observing, of reasoning on sustainability, and actually we see the island as a test bed because there is in the locality the possibility to gather different expertise. Here, colleagues are actually mentioning the fact and importance to bring together companies, so the business world, together with the policy making, and then the education, and then citizens as well. So on an island or even a small village would be possible to bring together these different voices and actually try to find the right tools, but even before the language, to allow all these different people to dialogue and to listen to each other. So I was trying to reinforce these aspect that is fundamental for collaboration and to work together for a common goal. So designers are so despite we are on a small island, we are isolated physically but connected through technology to the rest of the world. In the end, we have a responsibility even here to take care of these habitats, of this place, because anyway, it's part of a bigger picture of a planet. And so what we try to do with our young creatives and designers is actually to make them understand that they have this responsibility of taking care, and they are sort of connectors also between all these different actors, different languages, different expertise, and people that at the moment they tend to fight each other instead of actually coming together to bring a sustainable development. But I think that if a small island could be an example, can be a test bed for new systems that are more holistic, more strategic in the way they create value, they produce things, consume and use and reuse, then of course the rest of the world could be inspired and have the chance to progress and grow in a more sustainable way.
I think that is a very sort of encouraging end note, and say that just as you see your projects at Madeira as a test bed which can be scaled up, I think that you should, every time you start a new project in your class with 2 or 3 other students, see it as a test bed of something that can change the world. So test out, experiment with what could really make an impact. But if you don't believe it in your own little group of 3 or 4 students, then it can never happen. But if you think that this is the beginning of something fantastic, then it can turn out to be a game changer. I think that's what we can learn from it. So thank you to you, thank you to the panel.
Thank you so much to all of them. A really fantastic roundtable. Next year, if I'm still here, I don't know. I hope not.
None of us know.
Then I come to all your countries to speak about the goals. They have to have also the goals, and then together with their mentors, looking for the models, strategy, vision, technology, materials, all goals of agenda, and so on and so on. So, studenti, hvala. Thank you very much. It was very nice to work today. Thank you to all my colleagues, and thank you to all of them for this conspirative dialogue.
Thank you.